Unity Government Secondary School was one of the largest government-owned schools in the heart of Benin City. It had been around for many years, producing some of the brightest students in Edo State. The school had many teachers, but there was one who stood out among them all, Miss Osasu. Osasu was an elegant young woman in her late 20s. She carried herself with grace, poise, and confidence that made her admired by both students and fellow teachers. Her deep brown skin glowed under the sun, and her neatly plaited hair always looked perfect. She was known for her beautiful smile, but behind that smile was a strict teacher who never tolerated laziness or bad behavior. She taught English language, and she was one of the best teachers the school had. Her students always performed well because she made sure they understood everything she taught. However, Osasu was not one to allow indiscipline in her class. If a student misbehaved, she did not hesitate to punish them. Some students feared her strictness, while others respected her for it. One bright Monday morning, Osasu arrived at school dressed in a well-ironed navy blue skirt and a white blouse. She walked gracefully into the school compound, greeting the security man and some students who were standing by the gate. "Good morning, ma," a young boy greeted shyly as she passed. "Good morning, Michael. How was your weekend?" she asked with a warm smile. "It was fine, ma. I helped my mother at her shop," the boy replied. "That's good. I hope you did your assignments." "Yes, ma," he answered confidently. "Very good. Keep it up," she said before walking towards the staff room. Osasu entered the staff room and placed her handbag on her desk. She greeted her colleagues, who were already seated and preparing for their lessons. "Osasu, good morning, Mr. Okafor," the mathematics teacher said. "Good morning, Mr. Okafor. How was your weekend?" "It was fine, my dear. And yours?" "It was great, thank you," she replied as she took out her lesson notes. Osasu loved her job. Teaching was her passion, and she believed in shaping the minds of young students to help them succeed in life. Even though some of her students were troublesome, she was determined to guide them in the right direction. That morning, as she checked her timetable, she realized she had SS2A for the first period. She smiled to herself because she knew she had given them an assignment the previous Friday. She was eager to see how well they had done. With her lesson notes in one hand and a marker on the other, she stepped out of the staff room and made her way to the classroom. Osasu entered SS2 classroom and was met with a loud chatter. Some students were laughing, others were talking in small groups, and a few were focused on their books. "Good morning, class," Osasu greeted as she walked to the front of the room. The students quickly stood up and chorused, "Good morning, ma." "Sit down," she said as she placed her books on the teacher's table. Osasu glanced around the class, noting some students who were still whispering. She gave them a sharp look and they immediately fell silent. "Who can remind us of the assignment I gave last week?" she asked, folding her arms. A student named Jude raised his hands. "Ma, you asked us to write an essay about the importance of hard work." "Very good. Now I hope everyone has done it because I will be collecting your books now," she said firmly. The students started murmuring and exchanging worried glances. Osasu frowned. "If you did not do your assignment, stand up," she commanded. Slowly, more than half of the class stood up. Osasu's eyes widened in disbelief. "You mean to tell me that after all I have taught you about discipline and responsibility, you still failed to do your assignment?" she asked, looking from one student to another. "Ma, I was sick," one student said weakly. "Ma, my younger brother tore my book," another added. "Ma, I forgot," one girl admitted honestly. Osasu sighed and shook her head. Excuses. Always excuses. She took a deep breath and walked to the blackboard, writing the words hard work and discipline. "Can someone tell me what these words means?" she asked, turning to face the class. The student remained silent. "Hard work means putting in effort to achieve success," she explained. "Discipline means doing what is right even when no one is watching. If you want to be successful in life, you must be hardworking and disciplined." She paused, allowing the word to sink. Then she turned to the students who had not done their assignment. "As punishment, all of you will kneel in front of this class for 20 minutes. Next time, you will take my assignment seriously." One by one, the students who failed to complete their assignment moved to the front of the class and got on their knees. However, one girl remained seated. Her name was Ivie. Ivie was one of the popular girls in school. She always walked around with pride, acting as if she was better than everyone else. "Ivie, why are you still sitting down?" Osasu asked. "I cannot kneel down in front of my classmates," she said, crossing her arms. The whole class went silent. No one had ever spoken to Miss Osasu like that before. Osasu was shocked. She took a deep breath, then turned to one of the students. "Go and bring me my cane," she instructed. A few moments later, the student returned with the cane. Osasu looked at Ivie. "Since you think you are too big to obey school rules, you will receive 3 strokes of cane." She raised the cane and gave Ivie 3 firm strokes. Her lips trembled. She lowered her head in shame and walked back to her seat. Osasu sighed. "Let this be a lesson to everyone. In my class, there is no room for pride and arrogance," she said as she continued her lessons. Away from school, Osasu had a thriving personal life. She was engaged to Nathan, a handsome young banker who adored her. Nathan was charming and attentive, always ensuring that Osasu felt cherished. Their love story was one many admired, and the couple seemed to be headed for a perfect future together. After school, Osasu returned home feeling tired but satisfied. She loved teaching, even though it could be stressful sometimes. As she sat on her sofa, her phone rang. It was Nathan. "Hello, my love." Nathan's deep soothing voice came through the phone. "Hello, dear. How was work?" "Stressful as usual, but hearing your voice makes everything better," he said. Osasu smiled. Nathan had a way of making her feel special. He was a young, ambitious banker who worked in one of the top banks in Benin City. They had been dating for 2 years and were engaged to be married. "Have you eaten?" he asked. "Not yet. I just got home." "You work too hard, my dear. You need to take care of yourself," Nathan said with concern. "I know. Teaching is not easy, but I love it. And that's one of the things I admire about you," Nathan said warmly. Their conversations continued as they talked about their future, their wedding plans, and their dreams. Nathan had always been supportive of Osasu's career, and she felt lucky to have him. The morning assembly at Unity Government Secondary School was usually a time for discipline and order. Every student lined up in their respective classes, while the teacher stood on the high platform, overlooking them. On this particular day, Osasu was choosing to lead the assembly. She always carried herself with confidence, and as she stepped forward, she adjusted her skirt and held the microphone firmly. "Good morning, students," she said in a clear voice. "Good morning, ma," The students chorus. Let us begin with the school anthem, she announced. The students started singing the school anthem in unison, their voices echoing through the assembly ground. Everything seemed normal, but just as they were about to recite the national pledge, something unexpected happened. A loud pooh sound filled the air. For a moment, everything went silent. The students stopped singing. The teachers on the platform turned their heads in confusion. Then all eyes slowly shifted towards Osasu. She stood frozen, her face burning with embarrassment. She could not believe it. Did she? Did she just fart? And not just any fart, but a loud, uncontrollable one. The students tried to hold back their laughter, but it was no use. Some covered their mouths, others whispered to each other, and a few burst into uncontrollable giggles. Osasu's heart pounded in her chest. She quickly handed the microphone to another teacher and walked off the platform with her head bowed. She hurried to the staff room, her hands shaking as she pulled out a chair and sat down. What just happened? She muttered to herself. She tried to recall what she had eaten the previous night. Had she eaten anything strange? Nothing came to mind. She just took deep breaths, trying to calm herself. Just then, Mrs. Ade, one of the fellow teachers, entered the staff room and walked up to her. Osasu, are you okay? She asked gently. Osasu forced a smile. Yes, I am fine, I guess so. Mrs. Ade hesitated before speaking again. The students, they are talking about what happened. Osasu sighed and rested her head on the table. She knew better. She knew how naughty the students were. I know, she whispered. She knew this was not going to be forgotten anytime soon. She just hoped that it was a one-time thing. But she had no idea that her embarrassment had only just begun. Later that day, Osasu had a class with SS1B. She walked into the classroom, determined to put the morning incident behind her. The students stood up to greet her as usual. Good afternoon, ma, they chorused. Good afternoon, class. Sit down, she replied. She opened her lesson notes and began teaching. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. The students were paying attention and Osasu was starting to feel better. Then it happened again. Pooh! A loud fart escaped from her once more. This time, there was no mistaking it. The entire class erupted in laughter. Some students held their stomach as they laughed uncontrollably. Others banged their desks, unable to contain themselves. Osasu's hand trembled. Her face turned red with shame. Enough! She shouted, trying to regain control of the class. But the students could not stop laughing. Some even imitated the sound of the farting, making matters worse. Everyone, keep quiet, she yelled. Slowly, the laughter died down, but she could still see some students exchanging amused glances. Osasu clenched her fists. She had always been a strict and disciplined teacher, and she could not allow herself to become a joke. If I hear any more laughter, I will punish the entire class, she warned. The students quickly adjusted themselves, but Osasu knew the damage had been done already. The respect she had built over the years was beginning to fade. She rushed through the rest of the lessons, eager to leave the class. As she walked out, she could hear whispers behind her. Did you hear it? Twice in one day, another person said. I can't believe it. Miss Osasu of all people. Osasu felt tears sting her eyes, but she held them back. She could not let anyone see her weakness. Osasu hoped the embarrassing incident would stop, but her nightmares was far from over. The next day, there was a staff meeting in the principal's office. All teachers gathered around the table, discussing important school matters. The principal, Mr. Akpata, was a strict man who did not tolerate nonsense. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began. "Good afternoon, sir," the teachers responded. As the meeting progressed, Osasu sat quietly taking notes. She wanted to avoid any unnecessary attention, but fate had other plans. Without warning, Osasu farted again. The sound echoed through the room. The room immediately fell silent. All eyes turned to Osasu. Osasu's heart sank as she muttered a sorry within her breath. Mr. Akpata frowned. "Miss Osasu, was that you?" Osasu felt like disappearing into thin air. She lowered her head, too ashamed to speak. "Miss Osasu, you are an adult and a respected teacher. How can you be so careless?" the principal scolded. I don't know what's happening to me," Osasu whispered, her voice shaking. Mr. Akpata sighed in frustration. "This is unacceptable. You must learn to control yourself. This is a workplace, not a market square." Osasu swallowed the lump in her throat. She wanted to explain that she had no control over what was happening, but she knew it would sound like an excuse. The meeting continued, but Osasu barely heard anything. Her mind was clouded with thoughts. Something was definitely wrong with her, but she did not know what. Within a week, the entire school was talking about Osasu's embarrassing moments. The news spread like wildfire. Students whispered about her in the hallway. Some giggled whenever she walked past. Even some teachers looked at her differently. "Did you hear what happened at the staff meeting?" one student whispered to another. "Yes, even the principal was angry at her," the other replied. Osasu tried to ignore the stares and whispers, but it was impossible. She could feel the respect she once commanded slipping away. Some naughty students even went as far as nicknaming her. Some group nicknamed her Auntie Fatima, while others nicknamed her Messy Messy Auntie. Osasu walked into a class one cold morning. The windows were obviously closed because of the nature of the weather that day. But Imade, a naughty student, raised his hands trying to get Osasu's attention. "Yes, Imade, do you have a question for me?" Osasu asked. "It's not really a question about this lesson, ma," Efe said mischievously. "Okay, what then is it?" Osasu inquired. "Miss Osasu, please, can I open the window?" "Why?" Osasu asked, raising an eyebrow. "For fresh air, ma. You never can tell. Anything can happen," the student replied with a smirk. The whole class erupted in laughter. Nathan, who once reassured her and made her feel loved, also began acting differently. At first, he tried to comfort her, telling her it was just a phase and that it would pass. But as time went on and the embarrassing incident continued, he started keeping his distance. One evening, Osasu sat alone in her room, thinking. She had tried everything, eating lighter meals, avoiding food that could cause gas, drinking water, but nothing worked. No matter what she did, the embarrassing sound and smell followed her like a plague. She felt helpless. She thought about taking a break from work and going to see the doctor. And with that, she went to the principal's office the next day. "Sir, I need some time off," she said, her voice weak. The principal sighed. "Osasu, I can see that you are struggling. You are one of my best teachers, but I understand that you need rest. Take some days off and see a doctor," he said, patting her back. Osasu went to the hospital. She explained to the doctor about her condition, how it only happened in public places, and how it was ruining her life. The doctor ran several tests, But when the result came back, everything was normal. "There is nothing wrong with you, Miss Osasu," the doctor said. Osasu was shocked. "Nothing? But I keep embarrassing myself. It has to be something medical." The doctor shook his head. "I suggest you take care of your mental health. Stress can sometimes cause strange reactions in the body." Osasu left the hospital feeling worse than before. If the doctors couldn't help her, who could? Nathan had always been the perfect fiancé. He showered Osasu with love and treated her like a queen. But lately he had changed. He no longer called as often, and when he did, their conversations were short and dry. One evening, he invited Osasu for a dinner date. She was excited, thinking that perhaps this was a sign that things was going to get better. Maybe he had planned something special, she thought to herself. She dressed beautifully and made sure to eat very little before leaving the house, just in case. When she arrived at the restaurant, Nathan was already waiting for her. He looked happy to see her, and for the first time in weeks, Osasu felt better. They ordered their food, and for a while, everything seemed fine. Then, as the waiter was serving them, it happened again. A loud fart escaped from Osasu. The smell was terrible, filling the small space around their table. The waiter's nose wrinkled in disgust, and Nathan's face turned pale. People sitting nearby turned to look, some covering their noses. Osasu wanted the ground to swallow her. "I am sorry," she whispered, her hand shaking with embarrassment. Nathan coughed. "Osasu, this is becoming too much," he said, his voice full of frustration. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I don't know what's happening to me, Nathan. Please, just be patient with me." Nathan sighed. "Osasu, I love you, but how much longer do you expect me to endure this? It's embarrassing. Everywhere we go, something happens." Osasu looked at him, hurt by his words. "So, you are ashamed of me now?" Nathan rubbed his forehead. "I don't know what to do anymore." They finished their meal in silence, but Osasu knew things would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and Osasu's condition did not improve. Nathan became more and more distant. At work, things only got worse. Students openly laughed at her now, and some even mimicked the sound she made. One afternoon, Osasu received a call from Nathan. He wanted to meet her. She felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. Something told her that this was not going to be good. They met at a quiet park, a place where they had shared many happy moments in the past. Nathan didn't smile when he saw her. He looked serious, even sad. "Osasu," he began, "I have thought about this for a long time." Osasu's heart pounded in her chest. "Nathan, please, don't say it," she whispered. He took a deep breath. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be with someone who embarrasses me everywhere we go. I have tried to be patient, but I don't see any changes." Tears streamed down Osasu's face. "Nathan, please. I love you." He shook his head. "I love you too, Osasu. But love is not enough. I need my peace. I need a woman I can be proud of, not one who makes me subject of gossip." Osasu sobbed uncontrollably. "Please don't do this to me. Don't leave me. I need you." Nathan looked away. "I am sorry, I have to go." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Osasu broken. Within few months, Osasu's life had fallen apart. She had lost the respect of her students and fellow teachers, and now she had lost the love of her life, Nathan. She barely ate, barely slept. She had no idea what was wrong with her body, and the doctors had no answers either. The thought of suicide kept running through her mind. She just wanted everything to end. She also thought of resigning too. But she knew that suicide and resigning Was it a solution to her problems? One day, a colleague approached her gently. "Osasu, I know you are going through a whole lot, but have you considered that maybe this isn't just a physical issue? Maybe something spiritual is at play?" Osasu blinked. "Spiritual? What do you mean spiritual?" The teacher hesitated before speaking again. "Strange things happen in this world. Have you thought about seeking prayers just to be sure?" Osasu scoffed. She was never a religious person. She believed in hard work and discipline, not in superstition and spiritual warfare. And so, she shoved her colleague's suggestion aside and thanked her for her genuine concern. It was close to the end of the term, and as the usual custom of the school was, they planned a special termly prayers. The pastor had been invited to lead the assembly that day. Osasu stood at the edge of the platform, uninterested. She was not a religious person, but she stayed out of respect. As the pastor led the prayers, he suddenly stopped. He looked straight at Osasu's direction, his eyes filled with concern. He walked towards her and placed a hand on her forehead. Osasu immediately felt a strange force move through her. Suddenly, she fell to the ground. The pastor began to pray harder, calling on the power of God. Suddenly, from the back of the assembly, a loud voice screamed, "I will confess, I will confess. Please, just tell this fire to stop. Please, I will confess." Everyone turned to see Ivie, the proud and arrogant girl. She ran to the front, trembling. I will confess. I took Auntie Osasu's name to the coven. I wanted to punish her and cause her shame and embarrassment for embarrassing me in front of the class. Please, I will confess. I am sorry." A wave of shock spread through the crowd. Osasu stared at Ivie in disbelief. The pastor prayed for Osasu's deliverance. She felt something lift off her, as if a heavy burden had been removed from her shoulder. For the first time in months, she felt free. That afternoon, the principal called an emergency assembly. Ivie was expelled from school for her evil and wicked practices. Osasu finally understood that her problem had not been natural after all. She made a decision that day. She would get to know God for herself, because now she knew that nothing happened in the physical without something happening in the spiritual first. In the weeks that followed, Osasu developed a closer relationship with God. She prayed more, read more spiritual books, and sought wisdom from people who had been on similar journeys to knowing God like her. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel to enjoy more interesting African tales. Also, share with us in the comment section what you love about this story and the valuable lessons you have learned from this story. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Until I come your way again, for now, it's bye!